the first 7 episodes were so good, in my opinion. To your point, they were setting up all the stuff they were doing with Earth X was really interesting. And then to just not even really be there in the finale, I think is why it feels so disappointing. If this finale were for a different set of episodes that were maybe on its same level, I don't think we would be as disappointed.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Breakroom, everybody. We're chatting about Peacemakers. We're jamming out to a solo
Anything
cover.
That's not Nelson.
Anything not Nelson. Twisted Sister, solo covers, whatever you think. We're talking the Peacemaker finale. And I'm saying not season 2 finale. It sounds like finale. This may be our
on a
final
cliffhanger.
I think that's
How dare
the big
they?
question. That's the big question.
We'll answer how much more Peacemaker could we ever get. James Gunn says there's no plans for a season 3. A lot of mixed feelings out there about the Peacemaker finale, and we're gonna go through all of this with you. What really happened with this show? What were our real honest feelings on it? We're gonna answer all of your questions, whatever lingering questions you may have, unanswered questions, unfulfilled promises, expectation management gone awry, or is everyone being too hard on this show? I don't know. Let's get into it. Joining me on the show, we got John Costa and Zach Huddleston. Hey guys.
Hello.
I watched this yesterday. I put down the baseball. It was hard to do, and then I watched the show.
Who's your team? Are you a Dodger
I
fan?
loved watching the Dodgers win yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had at least one win yesterday.
I had, just
Okay.
one.
Yeah, I have some strong feelings. There's already some good questions popping up in the chat. This kind of goes off of Optimistic92 sending in a super chat. Thank you. Gunn says he likely won't get Peacemaker season 3, but what if we get a Checkmate show?
Yeah.
I think that, should we start there about what's next? Where do we see these characters? What's the likelihood that there is another season? Because James Gunn, in both his after show and interviews that have already been published about the finale, has repeatedly said there's no plans for season 3, which is up to him. He's the guy that would greenlight a season 3.
Yeah, he sees his own boss.
So feels like that's his way of saying we're not going to do a season 3, but work is already underway on Creature Commando season 2. We know work is underway on Superman Man of Tomorrow, where some of these characters will in theory appear. Who knows what other DC shows, films, some of these characters could lead into or show up in again. What do you think? What is next for Peacemaker and or the rest of this crew?
Well, I think by even name dropping Salvation, that gives us some insight. And you could even say by just saying Salvation and expecting 100% of the viewers to know what that means, James Gunn might be overestimating his audience, especially if this is a guy who's promised no homework is necessary, because here you are on YouTube right now seeking that kind of homework. So Salvation, you may know at this point, it is a reference to the Salvation run in the comics 2007 to 2008. It is a planet that basically the American government exiles a bunch of supervillains to, and those supervillains include the Joker, Lex Luthor, the Rogues, just a lot of important people, and who knows what lineup of those live action DC villains could end up there. But it is a planet. At some point, they all form different factions to try to escape, and it leads right into what's called the Final Crisis storyline in 2008, and it's a big Darkseid storyline. It's an insane crossover event that ties in everybody, the Justice League of America, the Green Lantern Corps. There's some form of Darkseid that, I don't want to spoil it too much, but Darkseid just basically has what is a pretty wild plan to destroy all of reality that does involve kind of a murder investigation that really could set up Lanterns and what we've been told about Lanterns being a murder investigation. Anyway, so really what it sounds like is that James Gunn's ultimate plan is Darkseid, which is surprising to me because Darkseid was Zack Snyder's big bad plan for the DCEU. And we saw a glimpse of that in Zack Snyder's Justice League director's cut in 2021 on HBO Max. And we saw not only Darkseid, we saw his minions Desaad and Granny Goodness. We saw how Steppenwolf fit into that hierarchy. We saw the other side of the boom tube where Steppenwolf's severed head rolled to Darkseid's feet and he put his foot on it. And like we saw even the future vision of what Darkseid would have done to members of the Justice League in this kind of like apocalyptic timeline. It's wild that James Gunn is like already going there, even if it is kind of the end goal of his 4-movie Superman saga. I'm surprised that that's even part of a vision board for the next 4 years, if that is the case.
Well, I will say, James Gunn has said in interviews, I think in the Entertainment Weekly interview he did post-finale, that he is lightly adapting that storyline.
I just feel like you can't do that storyline and swap in someone like Brainiac instead of Darkseid. Like, the Final Crisis, it's such a cosmic scale event that you can't have it be Brainiac there. That's not Brainiac's MO. Like, Darkseid is seeking the anti-life equation. He is one of the new gods. He's from Apocalypse and hates New Genesis. And like, you wouldn't, and specifically Salvation is his training ground planet. It would be sacrilege to swap in Brainiac instead of Darkseid there. And I don't think James Gunn would ever do that.
No. And so if we were to take James Gunn at his word so far, and you know, he said in this interview that he's just like, he loves the general concept of shipping off metahumans to this kind of feral wasteland. I mean, there's some Secret Wars elements there. There's kind of a battle world quality, except for just with villains.
And just with like rural Georgia.
Yes.
A field in Georgia.
Yeah.
Was it odd to you guys that the number one metahuman Santa Claus was not out front of Salvation with a little bell and a donation bucket?
He does count as a metahuman. The guy can travel all over the planet in a single night.
I mean, if all of the 11th Street kids show up, they could form a Salvation
army. Yeah, 100%.
But in terms of like the plan, what's next? Like, I think I'm not too worried about there not being a Peacemaker season 3 because I do think Peacemaker's story has mostly ended. And you can argue that that's not the most satisfactory ending for Peacemaker, but the 11th Street kids have effectively become Checkmate. And you can call the next show Checkmate, or you can just have these guys as like the background organization investigating, partnering with the Green Lantern Corps and Lanterns. They could be in the background of Supergirl, in the background of Man of Tomorrow. They could show up in Clayface. Like, I don't need a series with them, especially, I mean, I love James Gunn, but especially if those season finales of those series are going to be as shockingly disappointing as this one was.
Let's sit on those criticisms just for a minute and talk more. John, you haven't gotten many words in yet as we've been.
Sorry.
I mean, I think the good news is I think we have a gradient of opinions on this finale, on this panel. I've been really positive about this show, talking about it on the Breakroom. And I'm still positive about this season. I have my issues, and we'll get into those. But by and large, I thought this was a really fun season of television. And I'm not so worried about there not being a season 3 because, you know, I'll be curious to hear from you guys what you think Rick Flag Sr.'s role is going to be in not only Man of Tomorrow, but the rest of the DCU at large. And Checkmate, specifically like Bordeaux being a part of Checkmate, means that I think that we'll see them as opposition to Flag in a lot of instances. And I do think that we'll probably see them in some respects in Man of Tomorrow. If James Gunn, this is what I want on the new Rockstars channel, Erik, my personal plea to you at some point next week. How did this finale set up Man of Tomorrow? I don't really get what that means.
Let's get into that right now. If James Gunn told us that, you know, craziest things he's ever written, and this sets up Man of Tomorrow, what are the ways we think it could? Now, it could literally just not necessarily set up the plot or the whatever, but like Lex Luthor was featured in the show, and the next time we see him will likely be in Man of Tomorrow. Some of these characters will no doubt, maybe Checkmate is an element there. I do want to step away just 1 second, and he did say Checkmate is going to show up, and he's like, he said in interviews, not only will Checkmate return, but they will be like more polished and professional the next time we see them.
I mean, they've got a ton of money. I don't know.
Millions of dollars.
I don't know how they're washing that money.
They no longer have a Peacemaker, but they do have lots of money. In an office, pretty snazzy, like startup looking.
Yeah, didn't it look like it looked like Pixar's Steve Jobs atrium,
Absolutely.
or like the Continental Studios in the studio a little bit? I was like, is that the same set?
Gorgeous.
So like, all of these people are, apart from Adrian, have had high-ranking jobs as a part of Argus or anything else. So while they are kind of a scrappy team, and you could say Adebayo is a little bit more green in terms of her work with Argus, but still like they do have a good jumping off point to be successful.
And I like that now there's a Checkmate out there, there's an Argus out there, there's still a Justice Gang out there, there's a Lantern Corps who we haven't really met yet. But there's all these different organizations.
I'm so sorry to detour and go back to episode 1. Does the Justice Gang make cell phones? What was with the GJ logo or the JG logo on Economos' phone in episode 1? Okay,
so this is my fault.
What is going on?
It is not a JG. It is a Lord Tech logo, and you could maybe even say it's not letters. It's just like kind of like devil horns, or not devil horns, but just like bull horns, a ram horn. It's just his logo. In my stupid visual analyses, I said that it was a J and a G.
Well, I agree with you. I think that's exactly what it looked like.
Yeah, I just think it's a Lord Tech logo. So it's like, an Apple logo or a Samsung logo. How does it set up Man of Tomorrow? A couple different ways this could go.
Yeah.
Just the planet salvation and the idea that Lex Luthor is teaming up with Rick Flag Sr. to create this exile planet to send all metahumans to. Maybe we get to see that plan enacted in the first act of Man of Tomorrow, where like the American government, the Defense Department is teaming up with Luthor Corp and exonerated Lex Luthor, or maybe a silent partner Lex Luthor, who's successfully rounding up and deporting people who are different to this other planet, sometimes people who don't deserve it. So maybe that's how James Gunn could put a twist on it. It's not so much villains, because like, is the Joker a metahuman? No, he's a clown prince of crime.
Peacemaker's not a metahuman.
Yeah, right.
They sent him there. Yeah.
Right, so already it's being used for something else. And that's why you could argue that Planet Salvation won't be exactly what it is in the Salvation run. As much as James Gunn says that he likes that run, it could just have, just bear some similarities to it.
I want to thank BetterHelp for sponsoring today's episode of The Breakroom. October 10th is World Mental Health Day. And this year, we'd like to say thank you to the therapists, like the ones who work with BetterHelp. BetterHelp therapists have helped over 5 million people worldwide on their mental health journeys. That's millions of hours of listening, caring, and helping. Therapists see us at our most vulnerable and step up to help us take steps forward. Moments in therapy, like the right question, a safe space to cry, or a small win, can change lives. This World Mental Health Day, BetterHelp is honoring those connections and the therapists who make them possible, while showing how easy it is to get guidance from a licensed therapist online with BetterHelp. BetterHelp therapists work according to a strict code of conduct and are fully licensed in the US. Finding the right therapist for you is so important, which is why BetterHelp has a short questionnaire to identify your needs and preferences to find the right therapist for you. If you aren't happy with your match for whatever reason, you can switch to a different therapist at any time from their tailored recommendations. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. And it works with an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 for a live session based on over 1.7 million client reviews. This World Mental Health Day, we're celebrating the therapists who've helped millions of people take a step forward. If you're ready to find the right therapist for you, BetterHelp can help you start that journey. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/breakroom. That's betterhelp.com/breakroom.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll even have time to establish all of those big marquee villains enough by the time Man of Tomorrow comes out in 2027. Are we really going to have a Joker by summer 2027? I kind of hope not in the DCU. I don't want to meet the Joker yet. And that's kind of what makes Salvation Run so much fun, is like you have Lex Luthor and Joker who are kind of like rivaling against each other on this planet. So, but either way, that could be what Lex Luthor does, but maybe, they find out that this planet is Darkseid's planet, or whoever else James Gunn wants to establish it is, and that's the greater threat that now Lex and Superman have to team up against.
And it's an entry level, or maybe, by the time we get to Man of Tomorrow, some time has passed, and they have successfully rounded up everybody, including the Justice Gang. What if they've kind of cleared the planet of metahumans, and the only two people left on our planet are Superman and Lex Luthor, when it kind of increases their need to team up?
Yeah.
Right. There is that beat in Superman where he and Lois are hanging out at the end and are sort of like, yeah, the Justice Gang has this one. I don't need to take care of it. If the Justice Gang is not there to take care of smaller threats like that, it would have to be.
Also, doesn't this, I don't know how this sets up Man of Tomorrow, but it definitely sets up a really fun next appearance for Peacemaker. And just like in Robin Williams' Jumanji style, just somebody's doing something in a future property and a fully bearded, shredded clothing, feral Peacemaker comes out. Like, I've been fighting demogorgons out in these Georgia woods for the equivalent of 6 months or whatever. It presents an interesting opportunity. Or this is a tangent, but we just saw the trailer for Primal Season 3, an animated show that I really love. But like, I would also watch a show that is just John Cena fighting monsters for 8 episodes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that this is likely or even considered, but like, you put Superman and Lex, instead of having all of the metahumans in Salvation, you put Superman and Lex in there and have like a bottle episode movie.
I mean, it works so great for Aquaman 2. Then why not have just a buddy travel movie?
Honestly, I did like that part of Aquaman, The Last Kingdom. I do think that could work. But can we just have some different biomes within this planet?
Yeah.
I was complaining about this.
Entries.
And it might be a little unfair. And if you're from Georgia, you may hate me. But just understand, I'm from the trashy south of you in Jacksonville.
North Florida is pretty much Georgia.
Pretty much Georgia. A lot of rural terrain that looks like this. Doesn't get as cold. But it just drove me nuts when the Russo brothers were like, let's set up shop here. And James Gunn bought a house there. So that's just where a lot of his stuff is going to shoot. There are far more interesting. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world that a lot of production has left the Atlanta area. I would prefer it if it came back to California as opposed to going to the UK. Come to California. We got all kinds of interesting looking terrains down here.
We got mountains. We got beaches. We got forests. We got deserts.
We got it all. We got an urban cityscape, baby. And hopefully soon some better tax cuts for you. However, it just like... It's what drove me nuts about a lot of the seasons of The Walking Dead. It just looks like they chose to shoot it there because we can make this look like Wakanda. We can make it look like, the Midwest. We can make it look like anywhere. And that generic quality just made that tree line that we heard a squeal coming from in this final shot a little uninteresting. Because like it's different when you're watching Lost or even the 2010 film Predators that will be coming to the new Rockstars channel the next week. It's more interesting when it's a place like Hawaii, like a beautiful, almost surreal, otherworldly type of setting. If it's just like what looks like behind your baseball diamond when you're not paying attention to the pitch at plate, is it that cool that some kind of roar comes? It was awesome in Lost when we heard the smoke monster scream. No one knew what to expect, and it was at nighttime. Here was just like in the middle of the day. It didn't excite me that much visually to go like, is Man of Tomorrow really just going to be set on just some generic looking field in Georgia? Again, no offense, Georgia. Jacksonville looks even more boring than your place does. And I wouldn't advocate to shoot outside Jacksonville.
To be fair, the economics of series versus film very different. And obviously, James Gunn took advantage of the cityscapes of Cleveland, and they shot Superman all over the place, right?
Yeah, and what they did in Cleveland was nothing short of miraculous, transforming that city into something that really did look like a living, breathing metropolis. I thought that was great. And I think you can shoot a lot of stuff effectively in Georgia. I mean, Stranger Things is doing the same thing, and it drives me a little crazy there too. But like you could say, Georgia is meant to look like Indiana in some of these shots, like rural Indiana. So I don't fault it that much. But I'm just saying, if you're trying to do like a tropical setting, if Battle World looks like this in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I will be making the same complaints.
A nightmare.
But it won't, because it'll look like the Pinewood Studios and UK soundstage.
Eric, do you know why the Duval River flows north?
It's in St. John's River.
St. John's River.
And it flows north.
Because Georgia sucks. Put them in the chat if you're a peach out there. 2 Floridians here shitting all over you. Everybody has to hate their neighboring state. That's like a rule. John, what state do you hate?
It's Arizona.
Yeah. John's a Californian.
It's Arizona.
He hates Arizona. Yeah.
Listen, you'd rather be dead in California than live in Arizona.
Exactly. We call them zonies. Yeah.
Zonies.
Anyway, so this is just my gripe. Like, I would have loved it if this planet that they went to just looked a little more visually exciting if this is meant to set up Man of Tomorrow. Like one thing for a TV show, a different thing for a TV show that's meant to set up a movie. And if like that setup was going to be one of these dimensions, like if you tell me that Man of Tomorrow is going to be set in that freaking skull spider dimension, I'm going to see Man of Tomorrow. If you tell me that it's going to be set like at some place where there's like, if you pan the camera to the right, there's a Dairy Queen and a Zaxby's, I'm less interested.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2?
Yeah, I know, right?
Matthew P9 sent in a super chat that's apropos of our conversation here. Bane and Deathstroke movie set on Salvation?
All right, cool.
If
they're still doing that,
I think you bring up a good point. I do want to see the whole bunch of villains get dumped into a wasteland and have to fight their way out. That is, that's not too far from a Suicide Squad plot, right? Like you could see just the next Suicide Squad movie being in Salvation instead of Cordo Maltese,
but
right?
also Secret Wars, right? Like it's just metahumans. Doesn't need to be just villains. They could send anyone there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and certainly like. I think Erik in his dramatic pauses hinted at there's some interesting. James Gunn loves tying things into relevant political threads in our own lives.
Though he swears he's not.
Shipping people off without due process. Peacemaker was out on bail. He was legally allowed to be roaming the streets. He was not currently being held for anything, and they throw him into a place that he cannot be retrieved from. Right? Like that is an interesting overreach of government. That like you could see that being extended and that being an interesting plot line.
Yeah.
Right?
Can we talk about Rick Flag Sr. in this episode? I was very confused by the writing for him and the characterization for him. I haven't minded the way Frank Grillo has played the character, or the way the character's been written in the 7 episodes leading up to this, even though the character visually is pretty different from what was animated for Creature Commandos. In this one episode, he seems to be so off the rails and unhinged. I don't know who this person is anymore. I understand he's motivated by a sense of protecting the normal people of Earth and exiling metahumans. He's motivated by vengeance for his son. That's fine. Seeing him party it up with these criminals, I was like, what are you saying here with the character? The only rationale, and I think they needed a scene to explain this, is maybe there is some commentary there over the way NIMBY people are, and that like I don't want people different from me sharing my neighborhood with me. So you'll put aside any differences you have with even your greatest enemy if you can get on board with someone who wants to kick out people different from you. And so maybe that's what they were saying. It was like a commentary. It was like paralleling the Nazi world. So if that's what they're saying about Rick Flag and like Sidney Happerson and Otis and all of them sharing that Luthor mindset of like, you know what, fuck these metahumans. Great, but then we need to see a scene where Rick Flag could really just relate with them in that moment. And all we saw was a montage set to some like goofy trash song where suddenly they're doing lines of coke in a Secretary of Defense ordained operation. Like, the fuck is going on? And then like by the end of it, he's just drinking. He just seems like a different human being than he was before.
Can I propose a theory?
Yeah.
A little Cyborg Strange rots your brain.
Like, for sure. And like, why did they need to even write this?
I forgot about that.
Yeah, with Sasha
it's very weird. Well, and also,
like, what's the point of that?
Also, even if another thing you haven't pointed out, he's totally cool basically sending his agents into the wood chipper.
To die.
Right? Like, he sees agent after agent come back mauled or dead, and he's like, keep looking, we gotta find a good prison planet. Also, why isn't Candyland a good prison planet?
Right.
They don't want to get murdered?
But he kind of doesn't mind locking him away and throwing away the key.
Right.
Why does it need to be? It is weird that that's where his ethics kind of begin and end. No, we have to give them a planet that has good oxygen.
He does say in the Pentagon meeting, like, I really don't care if it feels like a punishment. I just want them out of here.
Yes.
This is, I think, my biggest problem with the finale is that we get these like very short episodes for most of the season. This episode feels a little like it is longer, but it feels padded in terms of its length, with the very long sort of dance boat montages and a bunch of flashback scenes. I think I was a little disappointed by what happened in that flashback. I would have expected it for the conversations that they're having. I expected it to be a little bit more than a kiss. But we're talking about Rick Flag Sr. I think that if they had spent more time in the earlier episodes talking about his obsessions instead of him kind of trying to hide them, or just like showing his dissent. Obviously, we have those moments where he's like beating Peacemaker up and is very frustrated that Peacemaker's not hitting him back. But like, I think if we had more conflict between Rick Flag Sr. and Peacemaker, rather than it being sort of one-sided, this finale would have been a little bit better, because it felt like a finale to me. Like episode 7 was the finale of this season of Peacemaker. Episode 8 felt like a weird epilogue or a finale to a different season of TV.
Yes, agreed. Even two things on that. I will say, even if the show had shown us like Rick Flag feeling more anxiety just about the existence of metahumans and how his inability as a normal soldier or normal kind of government agent, like, oh, he stands no chance against these people, right? Like, there was the lip service given to, like, oh, there was a prison break at Belle Reve or whatever in an earlier episode. But that did not impact this show at all. We never saw any of those characters. We never saw that impact these characters.
I think it was just meant to be like Belle Reve and Arkham can't contain these prisoners, so we need salvation.
That was his verbal reasoning here, which is sound. I just wish that was not a part of the show at all, right? And you know, maybe too, this show and this version of Rick Flag does feel pretty divorced from the Creature Commandos Rick Flag. They look different, and like obviously he's not referencing any of his experiences with a weasel and Frankenstein's monster's bride or whatever in this. But like that character, it almost makes more sense. He spent so much time around these people, and he understands, and he is powerless against them, so he would want to brush them away, right?
I mean, like the great scene in Earth X with the government building and the Sons of Liberty. Like, if you just show Argus and their day-to-day operations, and then a metahuman comes in and tries to kill a bunch of people, like that is almost, and maybe that feels out of left field or something like that, but that feels like justification in and of itself for Flag to then go to Lex and say, "Hey, I have this problem that only you can solve."
Yes.
Yeah, it's just odd because overall it doesn't hurt my opinion of this season. I really do think going to Earth X was so cool, and the way it was structured, like it got me so pumped for this season. The way it was revealed, I thought was masterful and funny and heartbreaking and scary all at once. And I don't want to take away any of that. Like, James Gunn accomplished a lot of really cool stuff, a lot of bold storytelling in this season. It really is just this last episode did not stick the landing in the way that season 1 did. I thought his finale to season 1 was perfect for that season. It was a climactic battle. It undercut our expectations in hilarious ways. It did feature some like goofy meta cameos in a way that it also made fun of itself with. It had a great sense of humor, good song selections, good heartbreaking moments, good like epilogues, good everything, honestly. This season, it just does feel like it's part of a different show, even than episodes 6 and 7 were. And to do all that work to set up this great, terrifying setting of Earth X and not bring in Keith or not show the impact of that, even with a single scene in a closing montage or something like that. Now, we have questions. Sure, Keith still has access to the QUC from his end. There's no reason to think that he can't access salvation from his end. Interesting theories to consider there, but
though Argus said just like a lot of those doors are locked. Can we just lock our doors so nobody can get into ours?
And they also implied that they found a way to go straight from Argus to salvation through
some new kind of portal tech that they were able to hijack. I can't help but just feel a little disappointed, only because it was 57 minutes, as you pointed out, John. A lot of it was just concert film, like indulgent concert film.
Which was fun.
Yeah,
and I think if this finale had more meat to the bone, I wouldn't have minded it so much. But that felt like the credits are rolling kind of a scene rather than the big climactic moment.
Episode had a victory lap vibe to it, which is fine, but it was like, what are we celebrating? That they formed us an LLC,
Yeah, and that was James Gunn's original ending.
Yes.
He said he wanted to end it there, and then Peter Safran is like, well, if you're headed to salvation, we got to have a tag scene that puts Peacemaker there. That was added after the fact. We know that James Gunn wrote this season, these 8 episodes, all by himself in the same calendar year that he wrote the script for Superman and that he wrote Creature Commandos. Now, he says that all of his writing stopped conspicuously from May to November of 2023.
During that strike?
Convenient that you say you stopped writing during the writer's strike. We know you didn't stop writing. Anybody who's a screenwriter trying to make a living definitely opened up Final Draft or whatever their screenwriting software is and just didn't discuss it with anyone. That's fine. I'm not going to shame you for that. I'm not a member of the guild, but some writing was done. And not all of it was as good as the rest of it. I thought his script for Superman was amazing. I thought it was a really, really well-told script, great dialogue, great story structure. I even think the ending of Creature Commandos definitely stuck that landing.
Yeah.
This did not stick the landing. I think James Gunn is used to doing it all himself. He could have benefited from a writer's room here. He could have benefited from someone else other than Peter Safran saying, hey, let's see if we can do another draft of this ending. Let's see if we can break the story differently. Because this just feels like the fact that he wrote this and in the After Show podcast isn't kind of even acknowledging some of the story structure weirdness, just shows that I think he was too deep in the weeds here to really be able to see the forest.
And we've seen the same problems over on the Marvel Studios side of things, and I will commend James Gunn for doing what I think is a better job under a lot of time pressure than Marvel Studios was able to do. But like, I agree, Erik. I think that if you are going to both be writing and directing movies, writing live action TV shows, writing animated TV shows, and running a studio, that is a lot to do as one person. And there are people in my life like Erik Voss, ironically, that like somehow do more work than I think is humanly possible. And I'm sure
not all of it's
James
good.
Gunn is one of those people.
And I wouldn't be able to do it if I didn't have you guys,
right,
if I didn't have Jessica and Gina,
And part of being a productive, really talented person is acknowledging when you need help and delegating and stuff like that, right? Like, you can't, being a one-man band is not scalable infinitely, right? Which feels like what he's trying to do. He also directed a bunch of these episodes, right? He's clearly on set for the entirety of them. He put his wife and all of his best friends in them.
Maybe that's what he does, is he doesn't have time to socialize, so he just puts all his friends in his movies.
It becomes your social life as well.
We're being very hard on James here.
Yeah, and it's because, and making some assumptions, but
and it's because we really respect his writing. And like, he is maybe the top 5 most important people in the industry right now in terms of like where the money is coming from in the industry. This doesn't diminish any of my hopes for Man of Tomorrow, just because Superman was that good and the rest of the episodes of the season were that good. He is brilliant at a lot of this, and it's hard to stick the landing. And I think really the lessons to learn here are just an expectation management for a lot of it. I think we wouldn't have such high hopes for this finale if he didn't tell us to have high hopes for the finale repeatedly. And I could even forgive him by saying we got some crazy cameos coming up at the end of the season, because he said that in August before all these episodes came out. And I think he was referring to Nicholas Hoult showing up in episode 6, which is in the final third of the season. So that's fine. I can even say, like, it's some of the craziest stuff we've done. I really love it. If he personally feels like he loves making this finale because he gets to work with Nelson, the band, like, cool. If he gets to do this imp sequence, which I think it was awesome, I'll give him that. Leota's breakup scene with Kia, I really, really liked the writing of that scene. I thought it was a very emotionally mature scene. I even like a lot of people diss the pep talk scene, the group hug scenes. I like scenes like that. I like that Leota says, you're big and dumb, and I know you love me, and that's what's important. Like, that kind of raw, authentic love.
And sincerity.
I really did appreciate that. So I don't want to say this is complete trash of a finale.
No. The first 7 episodes were so good, in my opinion. I really liked the first 7 episodes. To your point, they were setting up all the stuff they were doing with Earth X was really interesting. And then to just not even really be there in the finale, I think is why it feels so disappointing. If this finale were for a different set of episodes that were maybe on its same level, I don't think we would be as disappointed.
Yeah. And let me give my micro critique here too about
Give the macro.
Macro. It actually is kind of macro. I hate the music in this show. And here's my thing. Everybody's allowed to have their favorite niche of music. And this is obviously James Gunn's favorite niche of music. This obscure, kind of like still being made 80s rock, right? Like hair metal that has somehow lived in the underground, and even mentioned the after show. It's still popular in Europe, but not here in the US. Why do you think that is, James? America, the seat of pop culture, has rejected this music because it's not good.
But isn't that a reflection of Chris Smith as someone who's kind of a reject?
And here's my thing. If this were just Peacemaker that loves metal, that's fine. That's an interesting character trait. It's not true. In this show, everybody loves it. Nobody pushes back. There's no like, oh, but also this person listens to rap, or also this person is a fan of pop girlies, or anything like that.
Judo Master and Leota make fun of it. They call it like Sid from Toy Story's favorite music. I think there's enough pushback against it, but I agree.
But John Economos is also like, this is my favorite music of all time.
They all love Hanoi Rocks.
Maybe it's just the length of the Nelson concert.
Yeah, that's really, I think, and I agree with you on that.
And just the number of men with dyed goatees and like weird cowboy hats on stage. It's too much.
I do think that James Gunn in general as a creator leans into indulgences a bit and doesn't always earn them. And you and I have talked about the Steve Agee issue on this show. I do think Steve Agee is funny. I've seen him in things being funny. I've seen him in James Gunn produce things that are funny. On this season, he was not funny.
Yes.
He was I thought his humor was not well calibrated
we were talking
for this
about
show.
In the whole beat, if he needs to distract the Argus agents, you come to find out, like, it's not so they can do some kind of heist, it's just so they can look something up on a computer, right?
Which
so
could they not have done at Argus, by the way?
Yes, so the whole reasoning for that scene is to give Steve Agee a comedic showcase, right? Like, this is the only justification for having that scene in the show. And it's not funny.
Yeah, and I know he even said in the After Show podcast he is intentionally doing bad improv. He's not trying to be the Craig Kukowski, Zach Woods, Eugene Cordero improv genius in that moment. He is trying to do what bad improv would be, but that bad improv should still be incidentally hilarious if you're going to put it in the show. And James Gunn even thinks like what they came up with from the lobster bit to the thing that they did in the post-credit scene, he thinks those are hilarious. And I disagree. I'm just like, it's just Steve Agee saying, hey, fuck you, man. And that's like the whole bit is like him just shouting. And it's not like Tim Robinson shouting. Tim Robinson shouting it's an Andy Kaufman experience itself. Steve Agee can be funny. I've seen him be hilarious just on this season. It didn't work for me. And the fact that like the camera goes to him for so many scenes and that's all he has to do, it just, I don't know. I think maybe I liked it better in season 1 than I did in season 2.
Yeah.
That was mean. I feel like what I said was really mean. And look, Steve Agee, you are so much funnier than I will ever be on like my funniest day. So I'm just saying like structurally, you can still edit these things to make your funny people look funnier than they are. And James Gunn would leave the camera rolling on them for like 30 seconds longer than I think his audience wanted him to.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are much more veterans in improv than I am, but bad improv is not funny. And so to do that intentionally, it's like there's a sort of a rule in improv that is called the like bad doctor rule, which is to say like being bad at a profession is not very engaging and not very interesting. And what's funny is in the specifics. And I think that they did the bad doctor version of whatever they were trying to do in that scene.
Yes.
I think a good example, we have seen every good improviser that we have ever worked with or been coached by or watched, it's very good at the bad improv bit. Fred Armisen might be a master at this. When you see his characters on SNL or on Portlandia, he's very good at like doing an authentic improvisation in that moment. The Garth and Kat segments with him and Kristen Wiig, where they're improv-offing each other, they do bad meandering improv. His Nicholas Fane, political comedian who reads jokes from the headlines, that is all improv, a lot of it, but it's just like bad kind of like stream of consciousness stuff. And he ends up going to very funny places that kind of threads that needle. And I just don't think we saw that.
Yeah.
Here.
And to be fair to Steve Agee, I do like the bits when he is being a coward. I think he plays those bits really well, and that's a fun character trait. But when he's, just screaming at someone for no reason or like doing kind of like elaborate, bits, it doesn't work as well. But here, we've got some questions coming in various chats. Thank you all for everybody watching on Twitch and YouTube live.
It's getting feisty.
Oh, really? Are they coming for our takes?
No, but people, look, this attracted a lot of people who are just angry for a lot of reasons. And whenever this happens, whether it's the finale of, Secret Invasion, The Acolyte, House of the Dragon season, sometimes it leads people to get a little overzealous with the things you are saying. So Berg, we appreciate what you're doing to try to keep people at bay. For everyone else who's coming up stuff. No, Berg is doing the Lord's work right now. What I'm saying, guys, is like you gotta take it easy right now. And even if you think what you're saying is fair, just understand that people are charged right now. And if you say things that you think are just chill speak, people are going to take it the wrong way. So just take an extra moment before you hit send on what you're saying in the chat, please.
Yeah, let's all be chill. Okay, but some of the other stuff coming up in the chat. Suvik Halder sending in a super chat. Saying he was kind of underwhelmed by the season 2 finale.
Yeah.
Yes, gave it a 6 out of 10 though. I feel like that's a reasonable. You know, we're being hard on a show that we really like and a creator that we think is truly at the top of the industry, right?
Also,
like we have high expectations.
Very high expectations. Also, just to compare, and again, maybe this is unfair, but to compare it to the season 1 finale, which we were just talking about in The Office, that we loved a lot, like that was a very big set piece finale. And in this episode, the big set piece was like they're going into these doors and are sort of having to fight off some weird stuff. Like there was no big moment in this finale, right? And if there was, I'm forgetting what it was.
I guess it's the group hug, I guess, kind of when they bring Chris back from the brink. Yeah.
But this is like a action show. I mean, this is why episode 7 felt like the finale.
The rescue is the big set piece.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was one of the coolest sequences. And that's just what shows that James Gunn can do this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so maybe it's just a pacing, maybe like where that event took place. I wouldn't have minded if that was kind of closer to the very end of the season, right? Marvel Pirate sending in, they never answered the question of who made Peacemaker's helmets. James Gunn said on Brandon Davis's Morning After Pod that it's still important. When do you think we might find out?
Who literally made the helmets?
Yes.
Was it not that like the alien tech that his dad discovered meant that he could?
Well, because I think what this is saying is like, because Augie kind of took credit for it in the first season.
Right.
But in the second season, Chris was like, that guy didn't make those. He's an idiot, right? But like, did not then tell us who did make them.
Yeah. I think in James Gunn's mind, these answers will come and I think it's all very fluid in his head. Yeah. There's no reason why that answer can't come in Supergirl or can't come in Lanterns. He's got plenty of cosmic stories coming down the pipeline, and I think he feels like, we'll start to answer these questions in other places, but like the answer to that question might spoil something about Supergirl. You know, that's I think why he's saying that to Brandon, like, because otherwise you're right to ask, like, I read it as a question that would be answered by the finale.
This will be the who bought Stark Tower question of the DCU.
Well, James Gunn never answers questions with doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Will never be answered.
He'll throw a tweet out in 3 days.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, the Red Saint Wild of it all, wild.
Yeah.
Just like, what was that?
See, this is when we talked about like the indulgences of James Gunn. Sometimes you mind them, sometimes you don't mind them. That really felt like he wanted his buddy to be in the show and thought of a fun character for him. And
well, they cast a different actor originally for that, and something didn't work out. And
Never
then they
mind.
fired that actor mid-production.
James Gunn has a quota that he needs to fire one actor and replace them mid-production every season. They did it with Freddie Stroma Vigilante season 1. They did it with Red Saint Wild season 2.
We don't know who the actor was, but they got in Michael Rooker and then we love Michael Rooker. I love what he did, what he brought to that character, but the character is written, I thought we're going to have more of a finale with what would happen, or just like we see that he's still alive or something like that in the finale. But no, there's just a lot of reasons to be confused by that storyline, because it really just felt like they had to keep it to have a reason for how someone could track eagerly to that cabin in the woods. But couldn't you invent some other? I just think they started shooting something and they couldn't reshoot something without adding $1.5 million to a shoot day to come up with a new subplot.
Put a little tracker and some baloney.
Yeah.
Hey,
come on.
You can catch me with that too.
Hey.
What other questions?
Okay, Drogo with the 7-month sub on Twitch. Thank you, Drogo.
Thank you so much.
Who is the man in Man of Tomorrow? If it is Superman, why not just call it Superman 2? Does this finale kind of change what we think that title could mean? Obviously, Man of Tomorrow is a comic storyline. We don't know if that's being directly adapted or not. You've kind of speculated, I believe, in some stuff like that maybe there's almost a competition between Lex and Superman.
Yeah, I think the
where
Man
who
of
gets
Tomorrow
to be
is
the Man of Tomorrow.
Yeah, so you could say Men of Tomorrow, but I think Man of Tomorrow is like who ultimately deserves that title. Who is the true,
Person of the Year, almost.
Da Vincian man or whatever, the Vitruvian
leader
man.
of the free world.
Yeah, who deserves to be humanity's representative.
Let's pivot here just for a moment, take a little hiatus here, almost like we're stopping off at an unnecessary Nelson concert. Matthias Ball sending in a super chat. How about that Wonder Man teaser that just came out?
Oh, yeah.
I'm loving it.
Yes.
I feel guilty for saying that.
You're saying-
As someone who lives in LA, and people complain oh, LA sure loves their shows about their industry. I watched that trailer and I was like, yep, sign me up, sit me down.
The show looks like it's going to be Barry, but with Trevor Slattery in the Henry Winkler role and Yahya Abdul-Mateen in the, what's his name role, Bill Hader role. Now, not as darkly comic and murderous probably, but instead adding in superpowers. That's awesome.
I think a bit of the studio will be in there, but I think this show was developed long before the studio was in our lives, just that shot of, I just have to assume it's by the Hollywood Reservoir where they're all posing in front of the Hollywood sign. I was trying to figure out what angle of the Hollywood sign. I'm like, that's not Griffith Park angle. That's not Beechwood Canyon Secret Stairs angle. I'm pretty sure it's Hollywood Reservoir. But because there's one part of the Hollywood Reservoir, I bet we could figure it out. Yeah, it's just have the influencers.
West enough. Yeah.
So funny. This could be great. We know some of the people who are writing on it, a lot of UCB writers who I think there will be a lot of industry humor. It's just going to be the shot of this guy who plays the president of Moravia in Superman, who's now this Lars von Trier type director. I love that he won a Golden Lion. He's coming to direct what seems to be a superhero movie that's a reboot of something from the 70s or 80s, and he's got art from Marvel movies on the board. It kind of feels like Kevin the Robot having access to all this footage as assets that exist within the MCU world. So I do think there's going to be some She-Hulk humor here, and I'm curious to see how Marvel fans take it.
Crazy good cast. Obviously, we've already mentioned a couple of the leads. Ed Harris not even in the teaser.
Yeah.
He's in the show as well.
Playing an agent, is that right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Right.
Neil Soroyan, which is such a good agent name on the show.
Ed Harris, whose face is like a lunar landscape at this point. Just there's a lot of geography going on with Ed Harris.
Is that Apollo 13?
He was in the right stuff. So
he's in all the best.
Oh, and Apollo
movies.
13. Yeah, he's in all the good moon movies. Okay.
Moon movies.
Christian Unpronounceable, is Argus going to send supplies with some of the prisoners that go to Salvation? Are you just off on your own Survivor style, or do you think there'll be a drop of a cargo drop of some rice?
I think you're right. I think there's going to be John Cena with a big beard and his tattered clothing and a weird torch made out of a branch.
a human skull.
Exactly.
If they could make it on Corto Maltese, I feel like he can figure it out here. Sure. He did have his helmet, though, with him. So, hey, you should have everything you need if you have running water and if you can find fire. You're good.
If the next time we see him, it's been 5 years, and John Cena comes out, he's got a big beard and crazy hair, but still 23-inch arms, I'm going to call bullshit on that. Unless my man found a gym in Salvation.
Should he not have run faster through that door? Why did he wait so long to start running toward that door after he was unshackled?
Ask Sully and Monsters, Inc. It's hard to know what's going on in this moment.
Is Maffy P, is it implied that the alien who Augie shot in kind of that flashback episode to the first time they found the QUC, is it implied that the alien who Augie shot and stole the QUC from left those portals in all the other dimensions? Is he a little Johnny Appleseed of QUCs?
Maybe. All those doors had to have been created by someone, and I don't think it was Augie from any dimension who built that many doors. It could have been him, or it could have... we don't know if he stole that suitcase from someone else. He was just a guy carrying it at that moment. So I still like the idea that Mr. Mixplistic could have... I know I always say his name. I say it differently every time on purpose. He could have been the creator of all these things, and he's got different allies and delivery boys who he sends his tech around with.
I like that. I also it is interesting, and maybe it goes with the theme of this season. Everyone that they got into, and again, some of the doors were locked, was terrible. All of the worlds they visited seemingly are worse than our world. Even the one that seemed better is a Nazi white supremacy world. even Salvation, which seems like beautiful and idyllic. Like, we know there's monsters there.
Well, maybe if you live in a utopia, you keep the door locked.
That's right. You nuke any QUC door that shows up in your universe. Yeah. That's mostly everything. I think we kind of got to everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what are some final thoughts you guys had on this season? And are you willing to give it a numerical grade?
In terms of DC projects, or should I just do DCU projects? I mean, this is still, like, I've been waiting for DC to be this good for so long that it's hard to sit here and really complain that much. It was a phenomenal show for me until the very end, and I still really like these characters, and I'm excited to see them in whatever. I'm disappointed there's not going to be a season 3. I'll say that. And I think if I didn't like this show, I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
What would you give it out of 10?
A 7.
Okay. Yeah.
I think before the finale episode, I was willing to give this like an 8.5 out of 10 this season, maybe even a 9 out of 10, just for being willing to go to Nazi
It's just like
World.
not like Andor, Severance.
No.
Like those shows are 9s or 10s.
Yeah, for really being real. So you're right to put it on a different scale of just like Marvel / DC style nerddoms. So yes, if we're comparing it to those, it would be lower. The whole season would probably be 7.5. And a lot of you are going to cynically ask, why do you grade it on a different scale? It's like, well, it is different. It's serving a different audience than a prestige audience. And if we're talking about who deserves Emmy nominations, I'm perfectly willing to put them all on the same scale. But in terms of like delivering the interconnected, like world building, movie setup goals that like these TV franchises need to do, I'm going to grade it on a higher scale than that. But the finale, I think, was really a 5 out of 10 for me. But as someone who aggressively defends Lost, a show that a lot of people felt had a
10 out of 10
finale. Weak finale, I cannot say that Lost subpar finale, even if you feel that you should never allow that to discount the journey we went on up to it, and then have a different standard now for Peacemaker. However, I do think that the finale of Alien Earth was so bad that it dragged that down. So I don't know. I'm kind of at the middle of the road, and I guess I'm back to where you are, John, at a 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioning Alien Earth, 2 other shows that come to mind, recent shows, Penguin and Creature Commandos, both of which I think were much better. Now, very different shows, though. You could argue Creature Commandos shares a lot of DNA with this show, obviously, some of the same characters. And Penguin has a completely different tone. But both those shows felt more like a complete product. There's something about this that does not feel complete or fully realized. Whatever his vision was, and I know James Gunn always comes with very distinct visions, I don't feel like he was able to execute it to the degree that we usually assume his work. And again, I was a gigantic fan of Superman. I think the guy hasn't missed in a movie. And his TV work has even been pretty solid. This is kind of his first big miss for me. So though I didn't hate it on a week-to-week basis, I did find myself being like kind of consistently underwhelmed. So I'd probably give this a 4 out of 10.
Cool.
Yeah.
The whole season.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And I think that's fair. And does this diminish my excitement for James Gunn's vision of the DCU? No. Because I think next week a trailer for Supergirl could come out that will just completely wash this bad taste out of my mouth.
Yes. And also like, hey, guys, we're not telling you that these are the final answers. Like, it's especially like comedy, and this show is still mostly a comedy, is so subjective and people have different tastes. And probably my low score is largely a reflection of this is not my particular taste in comedy. And so like just a lot of the show didn't connect for me on that level. You're allowed to love it. That's totally fine. We wouldn't look down on anybody that thought this was awesome, right? Or
you're more likely to go watch Tetsuo the Iron Man rather than Iron Man.
Hell yeah. Good reference, John. Hell yeah.
Well, we appreciate all of you joining us for this conversation, and especially those of you who really challenged yourself to contribute something respectful and meaningful in the live chat conversation, and those of you who are continuing to keep up that level of maturity in the comment section of this upload later. And thank you to Berg, especially for participating and moderating that conversation. A big thanks to Brian Kim as well for studio teching and editing this episode that you've seen. And thank you to all of you for for joining us for any of our Peacemaker coverage here on the Breakroom or watching any of our Peacemaker coverage on the new Rockstars channel. Overall, this is still a very fun, worthwhile journey to cover it week by week with all of you.
When should folks expect that finale breakdown, Erik?
That finale breakdown will come out Saturday of this weekend. I'm shooting it shortly after we wrap up here. Did a lot of research for it, and I think you'll really like the Easter egg breakdown because there were some really fun details that James Gunn hid throughout this episode. Thanks to all of you for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.